I'd like to call the meeting of the Corporation of the Town of Lincoln of October the 1st, 2018 to order and ask that you all rise for the national anthem. Please be seated. We'll begin this evening with roll call. On my right, seated at Councillor Brunet's left, is Deputy Mayor Lynn Timmers. To her right, Councillor Tony Brunet. To her left, Councillor Dave Thompson, and Councillor Rob Foster. To my left, Councillor Wayne McMillan, Councillor John Pachariva, Councillor Diane Rajima, and Councillor Paul McPherson. Staff that is present this evening include Michael Kirkopoulos to my left, Chief Administrative Officer. Within that portfolio, Carrie Beattie, the Senior Communications Advisor in the, at the bench at the back. Paul Diani, the Economic Development Officer, and Andrea Chambers, the Executive Assistant for the CAO and the Mayor. Julie Kirkelos, Town Clerk, and Trish Sarnicki are sitting in front of me. From Finance and Administration, Angela Safani, the Director of Finance and Administration, and Mac Guadaluno, Help Desk and Analyst. From the Planning Department, Kathleen Dale, the Director of Planning and Development, Public Works, Dave Graham, the Director of Public Works, and Shannon McKay from Community Services, the Acting Director of Community Services. We normally don't have so many staff in attendance, but this is the last meeting of this term of council. Are there any declarations of interest? There being none, do any members have any changes to the order of business detailed in the agenda? We move to the minutes of Council's regular meeting of September 17th, 2018. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the minutes of the September 17th, 2018 regular meeting of Council be adopted. Are there any errors or omissions? There being none, your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? There being none, we'll move on to civic recognition. And I would like to call Donna Harrington, Brenda Mitchell, and Connie Groves to the podium, please. And this evening, along with these three ladies and the Office of the Mayor, we are going to recognize Bench Brewing Company as the winner of this year's We Are Accessible campaign.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, the JAAC, of Lincoln, Westling, Pelham, Thorold, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and Grimsby is pleased to announce and recognize this year's winner of We Are Accessible campaign. The campaign recognizes local businesses and businesses who have made efforts to provide accessibility for people with disabilities in our community. This year's winner is Bench Brewing Company. This business offers a high level of accessibility for customers in exterior and interior areas, as well as excellent customer service. On behalf of those living with disabilities in our communities, we thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Now we're looking for Katie Hodgson. Please come up to the podium.
Hello.
Here is your sticker to where everybody can see that you are accessible to everybody with every kind of impairment. There's chairs here on impaired, visually impaired, and people who need walking aids. And this is your award.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
All righty.
Thank you.
On behalf of council, Katie, I would like to extend our thanks to Bench Brewing for putting the effort that they did into the design of the building so that they could begin in a very good place so that everyone could have accessibility and the confidence that they would be able to get into that building and enjoy all the good products that they have to offer. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to those who are watching through Cogeco, this is the end of the municipal term of office, 2014 to 2018. And I would like to welcome all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and youth of Lincoln, to this meeting. I'm bringing you greetings from council this evening and reviewing a few points from the inaugural address in 2013. The headlines on December the 5th, 2013, focused on the goals that council had in their sights, the responsibility that we all share for making Lincoln the best it can be, and achieving this by working together at all levels to build our community through civic engagement and a community conversation. That evening, I spoke to the importance of ensuring residents' basic needs be taken care of and the importance of looking in and outside Lincoln to improve our potential and opportunities. Every mayor believes they can make a difference in their community by turning the page. I believed that too, but I also recognized there were important values in Lincoln that needed to be part of the near future. Not by remaining small and isolated, but by building on a vision that I referred to as a community of encouragement. Many of you have expressed satisfaction that this council and staff have been very successful at listening, finding solutions to meet citizens' needs, building core services, and getting a good start on meeting the service level needs that are important to seniors, to families, and youth. You have been very vocal about what is important to you, and we have tried to respond. We have not always been successful, but our position has always been that we engage with you and achieve as much as we can. We have been disciplined in our work plan. We have searched for and been successful balancing investments in services with a healthy dose of outside revenue in order to achieve your expectations. We brought you an inaugural message in 2013 that laid out the intention to stop focusing on the here and now and focus on long-term planning and investments. Lincoln was ready for change, ready to have a council at the helm that was prepared to take the courage that would leave largely political decisions at the roadside and listen to the people. Throughout these 4 years, we have responded to your expectations at the same time as we and staff made ourselves available to explain what guides and impacts our decisions. We have been there to enable your building and business expansions, to resolve neighborhood issues, and to make our community safer. Community consultation, whether it be for the Prudhome's development or creating our vision of a place to grow, a place to prosper, a place to belong, you have been there with us from the beginning, guiding every major decision. In order that our Lincoln moves forward and prospers, you must ensure there will be no turning back. Remember, you live in Lincoln, where everyone strives to be a good neighbor, where children are encouraged to achieve their very best. This is the way we do it here. Thank you for inviting us into your homes these past 4 years. We look forward to serving you in the future. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the regional counselor's report, and the regional counselor is not present this evening. Do any members of council have items to report? I'll start with Councilor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to report on a absolutely outstanding community event that we had on Saturday. The weather cooperated for it, and from what I'm told, we had in excess of 5,000 people attend this event. It was a great collaboration of the Beamsville Downtown BIA, the town staff, the property owners in the downtown core, along with BDSS again coming through with the construction of a I Love Lincoln Because chalkboard, and it quite nicely filled up what has been a vacant lot for many years, and with the support of the many sponsors, and I don't have all of their names, we're able to create a more vibrant downtown. So, congratulations to all of those involved, particularly Stephanie Hicks from the BIA and Sarah Ain from the town staff for all the hard work that went into that event. I know that I enjoyed it for the time I was there, and look forward to another event of that sort, because really that's what makes us a strong community. This type of gathering of people especially in the downtown core. If we can get people together to put smiles on their face and have a good day, that's what helps to make communities. So I just wanted to mention that event as we finish off our term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Anyone else from this side of the horseshoe? Counselor Majima?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to let everybody know that on behalf of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, the all candidates meeting this Wednesday is at Jacob Beam School from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Counselor Pachariva?
Thanks, Your Worship. I attended last week's internet voting session that was held at the Fleming Center. Very informative as we venture into the realm of internet voting this election. I understand there's a session tomorrow at the Rittenhouse Library in Vineland, so I would encourage everyone to attend. You're getting your notices in the mail that have a PIN and an ID number, and it's very, very easy. The internet voting opens October the 3rd at 10 a.m. and then runs for 24 hours until the 17th. So we're trying to move forward. We're trying to get people out and voting and to let their voices be heard. And this way, too, we don't run up the potential of a mail strike. So you can do it online.
Very good. Counselor Foster?
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Just two quick things. I just wanted to echo Councillor McPherson's comments. I gotta say, being downtown in the afternoon, it so reminded me of the Strawberry Festival that we used to be running years ago, where we closed off the downtown section. And it was just an amazing event. Seeing all the kids, everybody was in such a good mood. It was amazing. I think the weather kind of helped with that a little bit too. And I also wanted to mention I was at the Chamber AGM along with several of us back this past week as well. The Chamber of Commerce was up at 20 Valley for the AGM, and a very different method that was followed this time for the AGM, and I thought it was really quite successful. Lots of discussion went on that evening, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I have a couple of things to report on. I know last meeting I talked about the food drive that was coming up, and it was held on the 22nd. Fantastic outcome. They had over 24,000 pounds of food come through that building that day, and I just think that's fantastic. If you want to get involved, it's a great event. Sorting food is actually a lot of fun. So I spent most of the day doing that. I was also at Lincoln Rerouted. I started out at the chalkboard first thing in the morning, and there were a few messages on the board, and it was really exciting. We cut the ribbon, and then we all went to Pioneer Day and checked out Spark and Doors Open. And by the end of the night, when I ended up at the Fling on King with 2,000 people, that board was absolutely full with messages, and I just thought that was fantastic. And just to echo Councillor Foster, people were happy. They were so excited. They were really positive. Just a fantastic event. So really well done. Kudos to the staff and to the BIA. It was very well organized. Great day. Anyway, thank you.
Counselor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to mention a couple of things. First of all, obviously the event on Saturday was fantastic. I was really happy to see the community engagement and certainly the Blackboard. And I got to give significant props to Councillor Timmers with her inclusion of all corners of our municipality as one Lincoln. So very good on that. Also, I scooted out to do some to a business opening in Jordan, Tay's Treats, right on the main across from the fire hall there. I'm not supposed to tell you, but I did have a sample of a few dark chocolate peanut butter cups, and they were very good. So I wished her all the best success, and hopefully we can continue to open up little businesses like this and big businesses. So that's it for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Councillor Brunet?
Thank you, Madam There we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to repeat what's already been said, I just wanted to thank and pay tribute and thanks to the Lions Club and the Community Care of West Niagara for the work they continue to do. The 29th annual food drive, just a great event, and to bring in that many pounds of food in one day is just a tribute and really a time to really reflect on our community. You know, we all think that we live in good times, but we do have poverty, and we need to reflect on that. We need to remember that, and it's just a great event, the Lions and the Community Care of West Niagara. I also attended the event at the Lincoln Rerooted and Pioneer Day on Saturday, and just to see the excitement and the enthusiasm from young to old, and to see what is happening downtown with the rebranding, you know, the new sign there at the top of Ontario Street certainly shows that you know, we do care and that we're moving in the right direction. The wraps that we put around the traffic counters, and just the little things that are being done, as Councillor McPherson alluded to, in the empty park, just a great event. I also just want to quickly comment. I know the mayor has been adamant in her discussion about working with the mayors in West Niagara for you know, the continued push for the redevelopment of the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. I think we commented after coming back from AMO about the good conference we had with the Minister of Health, Christine Elliott. There is quite a movement going on right now. I've had a number of calls from people who are planning some bus trips to Toronto for some lobbying over the next month. There are a lot of things happening. There are a lot of people, when we're going to door, you know, asking for some open and transparency in terms of where the money is and what's happening. Through Dave Cadwell up in Grimsby and myself, we've been talking with the West Lincoln and the Hamilton Health Sciences people to have some information put in the paper over the next week to talk about you know, finances and where things are. So good things happening on that front. I know for a long time people have been wanting to know what's happening, but I believe we do have things moving in the right direction now with the new government, and I know the mayors are working hard. So stay tuned for some interesting things happening on the West Lincoln development of the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of items. Last Thursday, Mayor Bentley and I met with Sam Oosterhoff to talk about Minister Elliott's visit to the hospital. She promised us when we met with her in August that she would come down and inspect the building and see firsthand what it was that we were talking about. So we're looking forward to that. And also, Councillor Rinjima and myself, Mr. Paul Labatt from the community, and also Mr. Leva met with two representatives from engineering department at the region, the roads engineering in particular, and we had quite a lengthy discussion about some changes that are going to be forthcoming on Ontario Street, and also some work that they had done refreshing the traffic activity coming down Mountain Street, King Street, and Ontario Street. So they were not prepared to make any official announcements at that time, but I think that the meeting we had here, Councillor Brunet at Infrastructure in July or August, I've forgotten now, certainly that pointed and very direct discussion that we had with the engineer and with the commissioner, I don't think that fell on deaf ears, and I believe there are people in the community that have really been hammering those points home. I know that Mr. Midges has been very, very active following up with her. So a lot of these things take years to resolve. We're not happy about that, but I think now that we have, we seem to have some attention at the moment, and we're going to take advantage of that to the greatest extent that we can. So thank you all very much, and Councillor Brunet, I want to thank you again for the work that you've done on the advisory committee at West Lincoln Hospital, because you've certainly been dedicated to making sure that we are all kept up to date. We have no delegations this evening. We move on to correspondence, and we have two items of correspondence, both the CAO will speak to. The first item is in relation to correspondence from the Township of Wainfleet. I asked for clarification on this. It is regarding the passing of a resolution for cannabis odor enforcement. I believe that we need all the information that we can get on what other communities are doing and what can be done in this transition phase where the ministry seems to be providing us with the least amount of information they can. Mr. Kirkopoulos, can you help us with item A?
Through you, Madam Mayor, thanks for the opportunity to speak to this particular motion. The Wainfleet motion is actually a motion that supports a previous Pelham position, and that position from Pelham is to ask the Government of Canada to provide more stringent and clear protocols relative to facilities and the elimination of odor. You'll recall from some of the updates that have been provided by staff to council, at the current time, odor and general inquiries related to odor fall under OMAFRA, Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. So this motion is supporting trying to get some action at the federal level. And council will recall this past week that staff provided 2 updates. One is with respect to the opting in, opting out relative to retail sales and the drop dead deadline that has been put in place by the province of Ontario of January 22nd. So that will be something that staff will be coming back to council with early in the new term in terms of the details around retail operations. There was also some additional information provided relative to online sales, which take effect October 17th of this month, and the changes from a communication standpoint, from a NRPS and enforcement standpoint. And so this particular motion doesn't speak to that, but I think it's important to highlight those additional pieces of new information that are coming forward from the province of Ontario as it relates specifically to cannabis within the community. I think just to provide a quick update from a municipal standpoint, we are currently looking at zoning, business licensing, building code, and municipal workplace safety as the other areas that we need to focus on, and have been and will continue to work with Niagara Regional Police Services around enforcement of licensed properties until additional zoning prohibitions or zoning elements can be put in place. One of the items staff is looking at, and again I think it's important to highlight, is a potential interim control bylaw, but we will be coming back to staff, or coming back to council again early in the new term to highlight the pros and cons of any sort of limitation on cannabis at that particular time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirkopoulos. And I would also just convey to council that there are pockets of concern that are increasing in the community as land changes hands. And so we are going, again, Councillor Timmers and I will be having a meeting with a few parties later on this week, on Wednesday, I guess it is, and staff will be going with us to make sure that they have accurate information because things are very much in a holding pattern, but there's still activity out there that may or may not be occurring in urban centers, but it is unique to the rural areas. So we'll continue with that. And Mr. Kirkopoulos, the B part of the letter from UP Cannabis.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think similarly, cannabis and the topic has become very topical, very aware right now, and so I think anytime we get correspondence, it's attracting interest. As per our legislation, local area municipalities do need to be served with documentation when a licensing amendment, even though that licensing amendment is a federal licensing amendment, local area municipalities are served with that documentation. This documentation does serve to provide drying on the premises, which is a matter of some of the work that Up Cannabis will be doing. So it isn't anything we license or regulate, but it is more of an FYI at this particular point in time.
And I asked to have this put on the agenda because I signed one of these amendments almost weekly, and I felt that it was important for council to understand that these are not necessarily benign entities in our communities, that there is an accumulation of activity that takes place, and it's not always clear what that accumulation might look like at the end of the road. So I wanted you to be aware that this information comes forward to the mayor's office. Now, are there any questions on the Township of Wainfleet correspondence? Councillor McPherson.
Madam Mayor, just a comment, and this is timely and in our door knocking here. There is certainly questions around cannabis. It's very timely. And there is a general confusion out there as to who does what. And I think that confusion probably is understandable because, there's various levels of government that are involved here. And I wonder if it wouldn't make some sense to post on our website something to that effect on cannabis that we do, since we're approaching October 17th in a couple of weeks, and we do have information as to who does what at the federal, provincial, and municipal level, and give our residents somewhere to go as a resource to research where the decisions are being made, because it is a bit of finger pointing this way and that way, and we need to get either Sam Oosterhoff involved, or we need to get Dean Allison involved, or there's very little right now at the municipal level we can do except field the calls. And I think it might be in our best interest to at least have some information available to our residents on our website to help them sort through who does what and who is responsible for what. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll ask the CAO to field that question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's a great suggestion. It currently is on our website. I think what we can do is there is some changes as it relates to the January 22nd information and the October 17th retail sale piece that we can update. We've had it on for most of the summer, but definitely something we can continue to point people towards, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Foster.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So one step further as well, it's always confusing who does what within our municipal sector as well. And of course, with my moving towards the region, I understand it's the public health piece that's the key critical part at the regional level. But that's worth knowing, that as well as the retail level being the responsibility of the municipality. So having all those things laid out so everybody can ask the appropriate questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Foster. Any other comments? All right, we'll move on. I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson and seconded by Councillor Ranjima that the minutes of the September 19th, 2018 Committee of the Whole Economic Development be adopted as circulated. Councillor McPherson, would you care to provide highlights of the meeting?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would. Committee of the Whole Economic Development highlights. The following highlights regarding the Town of Lincoln Committee of the Whole Economic Development meeting held on September 19th, 2018. The meeting had 4 delegations. Steve Langlois, Monteith Brown Planning Consultants presented an update to the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Master Plan. Ms. McElhone and Ms. Skellett from the Niagara region provided information about Village of 100. Dr. Ray Darchie and Stephanie Hicks from Downtown Beamsville BIA presented an overview regarding the BIA's community partnerships, events, and information regarding requests for boundary expansion for Beamsville Downtown Business Improvement Area. And finally, Sierra Planning and Management Consultants and Global Investment Attraction Group regarding AD 18-11 Economic Development Strategy / Action Plan, Employment Lands Analysis. Mr. Hack and Associates provided a presentation to the committee. Following that, committee then dealt with the following staff reports, which were carried. PW 18-23 U-Link Transit Pilot Quarterly Update Report. CS 18-04, request for boundary expansion for Beansville downtown business improvement areas, and AD 18-11, Town of Lincoln 5-year economic development strategy and action plan. The committee wrapped up at 10:44 p.m. Full details regarding the meeting can be found in the agenda and minutes published on the town's website at lincoln.ca. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are there any questions to the report? There being none, your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor Renchima, that the minutes of the September 24th, 2018 Committee of the Whole Business Planning, including the closed session items, be adopted as circulated. Councillor Pachariva, would you care to provide highlights?
Thanks, Your Worship. The following are highlights regarding the minutes of the Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole Committee held on September 24th, 2018. The committee considered 5 reports that evening. TR 18-20, the Development Charge Update. The presentation outlined the following 2017-18 study process and timelines, the calculation of DCs, mandatory and discretionary exemptions, proposed DCs, residential and non-residential DCs, and the town's DC history. TR 18-21, which was the asset management policy. TR 18-23, the FCM asset management funding, which will go towards the development of the asset management policy. TR 18-24, vacancy rebate and reduction update from the Niagara region. And finally, CS 1806, the procedural bylaw update, which is deferred to tonight's council meeting and will be coming, I think, after my report. The committee then went into closed session for 2 items. The first one was a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board as it pertains to a review of surplus town-owned lands. This was covered in report TR 18-22. And then the second item was consultant selection, animal care and control bylaw, and proposed revisions to the animal care and control bylaw, report PL 18-51. The meeting adjourned that night at 10:41. Full details regarding the meeting can be found in the agenda and minutes published on the town's website, lincoln.ca.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions to report? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not really a question, but I just want to make a comment in and around the development charges report that was brought forward. I was really happy to see a numerically based report that outlines what our requirements are going to be moving forward as we grow as a community. So I'm pleased to see that the development charges will be supporting that growth and the infrastructure that's going to be required. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other questions? Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Councillors, I'd like to take a couple of steps back. I have a motion here moved by Councillor Foster and seconded by Councillor Thompson that correspondence from the Township of Wainfleet dated August 17th, 2018 regarding the passing of resolution for cannabis odor enforcement be received. That the correspondence from UP Cannabis dated September 5th, 2018 regarding an amendment to include the sale of dried marijuana be received. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. We move on to report CS 18-06, the procedural bylaw update, and Mr. Kirkopoulos will provide some comments.
Through you, Madam Mayor, staff are prepared to provide a presentation. You do have a copy of a PowerPoint presentation that staff prepared on your desk. I can either do that at the front or take council through the particular items that you raised. There were There were a few that generated, I think, the most lengthy conversation. And you see that highlighted on page 3 of the presentation. Specifically the deputy mayor role, the regional council role, as well as just some clarification on the meeting schedule and time. So, like I said, we do have a presentation prepared. I can take council through that to let you know the purpose of the update, if council so feels that's appropriate.
Is that your pleasure, council, to have the presentation? Thank you very much.
So through you, Madam Mayor, to council. The purpose of our update tonight, you'll recall, one of the items when we started this process a number of months ago was simply to look at the bylaw. And I think members of council know that bylaws should be reviewed regularly. We should look at where we can make some changes, where we can get a little bit more efficient. There are some changes to the various guiding acts that look at procedural bylaws, that look at the acts that govern council accordingly. And so I think anytime you have changes to acts, it's also ideal that we look at our bylaws. Best practices for municipal meeting management, there's always changes, and I think we can always learn from others, but definitely create a Made in Lincoln solution that works for us, specifically looking though at best practices and how we can make some of those changes. At the end of the day, our goal is to be efficient, is to have efficient management of committee and council meetings. It's about good governance, things that this council has taken very seriously and made changes over this term and other terms to ensure is in place. Things around transparency, the way we report, accountability, and the various notice requirements. And of course, we look at procedural bylaws as a way to continue to provide support to members of council in a timely and necessary way. So as I highlighted, there were 4 things really that generated a significant amount of conversation when we looked at our procedural bylaw update on September 24th. They were the committee structure, the meeting schedule and times, of which we spoke about agenda management, the deputy mayor role, and the regional councillor role. So I'm going to take you through each one of those and some of the changes we made based on council's input. Committee structure. I think just to clarify, there will be 4 committees consisting of all members of council. They will be committees of the whole, and all members of council will be attending. Those are structured, as you see before you: general business and finance, community services and infrastructure, planning and economic development, and our what we call our committee of the whole workshop committees, those educational type committees, those committees that sometimes we use during budget time, and those will be as needed. There will be chair and vice chair roles as introduced towards the end of this particular term of council, and it is anticipated that those will be selected through a draw. They will be based on 12-month terms running January through December. Meeting schedule. We had a lengthy conversation on times, what times folks are starting. Staff, based on what we heard from council, and I think there were definitely some different thoughts in terms of what time council should start, have kept it at 6 p.m. Should we need to change that moving forward, that is one of those in-year provisions we can likely make. Committees and council will take place as they currently do in council chambers. There will be advance notice of agendas to ensure adequate preparatory time. So one of the questions, Mayor Easton, that you had was around the preparatory time that council should have to read agendas and that the public should have when agendas are placed. There will be bundling of agendas because we will have less meetings and they will be closer together. We will aim, as we currently do, to provide adequate and ample times for council to review those agendas and for the community to review those agendas. And agenda management. We had some conversations specifically around the length, potentially around planning and development and economic development agendas. We are looking at changing the agenda and moving to consent agendas. And a consent agenda is one part of the agenda that deals with those informational type reports, some of the routine stuff. Now, anything can be lifted, as members of council know, from any sort of agenda and brought forward to have a much more thorough conversations. But we will be seeing where we can find synergies, efficiencies, in making sure agendas move as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and discussing the particular issues that that council wants to have. As is highlighted there and bolded, reports at any point in time at council's discretion, at committee's discretion, can be lifted and discussed as required. So the deputy mayor role. We had a conversation, and there were some thoughts around the monthly rotation versus the importance of a quarterly rotation and that ability to forge those particular relationships with the mayor. And I think what we've recommended here, based on what we heard from council, is beginning with councillors from Ward 1 and then by alphabetical order of last name, continuing through each ward on a quarterly basis to allow that deputy mayor role to move forward that way. Of course, it is subject to availability or another agreed upon method of rotation when we get into the new term. And last but not least, we had a robust conversation on the importance of the regional council role, and I think we've tried to capture the importance that that role will play. It is considered a municipal official officer and will have a speaking role on the agenda and asked to provide updates at all council meetings. The regional councillor also will have some ceremonial responsibilities in cooperation with the mayor and council, and the regional councillor will also be invited and included in all municipal events. So we wanted to make sure that that was clear, that was highlighted in this particular update, and so I'm here to answer any additional questions council may have. There may be some in-year tweaks that we need to make, and we can definitely do that moving forward. And of course, our legislative services staff and Julie and Tricia are here to answer any more specific questions I may not be able to answer.
All right, councillors, I'll begin the speakers list. Councillor McMillan. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the CEO, in the report, the committee structure, there are 4 committees made up of all members of council. Do the council meetings themselves remain the same, so that they are twice a month for the council meeting plus the 4 committee meetings?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we will go to a once-a-month council meeting.
Once a month, council.
That's correct, Councillor McMillan.
Okay.
The rest will remain as described, 4 meetings
Okay.
plus the.
I'll just point out that, councillors, that we have an agenda here that outlines, do you have a copy, council? Does everyone have a copy of this? All right. It's fine. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Foster.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO. So I'm curious how the going to the consent agenda and various reports that may be sitting within this, how they are going to be lifted. In other words, having experienced this past term a couple of interesting situations, I'm just wondering, like, is this something that's an expectation that council's going to have to agree? Or is this something that, is there going to be some sort of a methodology figured out to do it? Because, not every councillor might have an interest, but sometimes there are things to glean from reports that may be in some of these things.
So through you, Madam Mayor, why don't I start that question, and I will turn to Julie on any of the procedural items maybe I miss. Typically with a consent agenda, councillor, at the beginning, when there is a confirmation of the agenda, there would be an inquiry made to lift that particular item. I don't know the requirements if it is a 50% or a 2/3 requirement, and so I'll turn to Julie to answer that particular question.
Madam Clerk.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Usually if a councillor wants to move an item off the agenda to be discussed into the regular agenda, it's just a move, and you can move it to discuss it.
So the methodology then, it'll be at the beginning of the meeting when the agenda is being discussed, a councillor would bring up at that point in time that they wish to have item X moved and brought forward as a discussion point at that point, correct?
That's correct, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
And Madam Mayor, in response to Councillor Foster's additional question, which was around how much of a majority was required, is it a simple majority?
I don't believe that it is a majority. I think it's just in council, if a councillor feels that it deserves more discussion, it will be discussed.
Fine, so I think that's what you're looking for. Good, all right, thank you very much. Councillor Brunei?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the CAO. So I guess just in recap, I'm really glad to see that through our discussion the other night, we're making sure that the regional councillor moving forward will have a speaking role on the agenda. I know we talked about him just being put in a delegation spot, but I think this is the right thing to do, and I'm really glad to see that. I think this speaks volumes to what this council thinks about the fact that we need a strong voice and a pipeline back to the region. So I'm really glad to see that. The committee structure, I think that the people that worked on this draft have done a good job in restructuring the committees. I really like community services being linked in the same pillar with infrastructure and planning with economic development. So I'm really pleased to see that. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO. So if I understood you correctly, Mr. CAO, so in terms of moving forward, we had some discussions at the last meeting about possibly moving meetings earlier, maybe up to 4 o'clock. So currently we're going to start them at 6, but we are willing to look at that based on the makeup of the new structure of council as we move forward.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct, Councillor. I think when that new council is in place, and we can definitely see how 6 works, but we can definitely be at council's will to look at an earlier start date should council want to go in that direction. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm very cognizant and aware that there's councillors that have daily jobs and can't get here, and even find it difficult here to get to earlier starts at 6 instead of 7. So I'm very cognizant of that. But if it's doable, we all know that we've been here to marathon meetings till 11 and beyond, 12 o'clock, and we've got staff that are here. So I think if we can move those meetings, if there's any way we can do it, I think it's something that we should try to embrace. So I'm glad to see that option and that flexibility will maintain as we move forward.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think another point that is important to highlight is that should we move to an earlier start date, we would, of course, always look at scheduling the public meeting portion of those agendas at a later date to allow community input, community consultation, and to satisfy the official requirements of, for example, our planning meetings. But at the same time, not to have them so early that residents can't get here. So we would definitely look at those potential tweaks should they be required, Councillor Brunei.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just, excuse me, Madam Mayor, just one last comment. I just wanted to thank the people that were involved. I really think, at least personally, I feel that, and I think we all kind of chimed in the other night that we felt that the deputy mayor role, to move it from what is currently being handled on a quarterly basis, to move it to a monthly was maybe the wrong way to go. So I'm really glad to see that the change is staying with the quarterly rotation, and I thank those that made that decision, and I hope that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor McPherson and then Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I will echo Councillor Brunei's comments with regards to the regional councillor. Really like to see the recommendation being made that our regional council will feel at home within our council and will be that key connection to us at the region, as we know there's a lot of regional projects that will be coming up, and we're going to need a strong voice at the region and a strong communicator back here at council. So happy to see that. I am a little bit disappointed that we didn't have at least one council meeting earlier than 6 o'clock. I will say that right now. I think that everybody's days are long enough, and I would push for an earlier start to at least one of the committee meetings if I'm fortunate enough to get reelected. And finally, a question around the chairs. And my question, and I'm not sure if we covered this at the committee meeting, was if selected as the chair, are you one and done for the term, or is there the opportunity to be the chair of a particular committee more than once?
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. So it just means that there's a provision in there where you can't chair it for more than one cycle. So if you're a chair of Community and Infrastructure Services, you would be chairing for that particular cycle, and then the next cycle, say in the second term of council, you wouldn't, not the second term, sorry, but the second cycle, you wouldn't be able to chair the same committee.
Through you, Madam Mayor, but you could come back in the third year of that term and
You
be the
could.
chair again?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much.
It's just to ensure that everybody has a fair chance.
Satisfactory, Councillor? Yes, thank you. Councillor Timmers?
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I don't really have any questions. I'm just really happy with this entire process. Being part of the governance committee, I'm really happy to have been able to participate in this. I think it's very efficient management of the committee doing it this way. Great efficiencies in our time. Putting the committees together to 4 committees, I think is great. I'm really happy with that. And I think it's very good governance that we're seeing in this entire changes that we're making. I like the fact that everyone that sits around the horseshoe will have equal opportunity to be a chair, to be a vice chair, and not go through 4 years of never chairing or vice chairing. And I think it's very important moving forward that everyone have equal opportunity. So I'm very, very happy with this, and I want to thank our clerk, Julie, for the guidance and leadership that she led us through this exercise. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rinjima?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is about this section 35, about recording of minutes. Over the last couple of terms, we've had a number of discussions about what minutes should contain and why. I know the Municipal Act speaks to that. So I'm wondering if this is going to see us have consistency about what we can expect to see in the written minutes across all committees.
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. There will be a template, and it will be the same for every single committee. And I would hope that it would also follow through to the citizen advisory committees, whatever that may be. But we will all be working from the same template, absolutely.
Okay, appreciate that. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Through you to the clerk or to the CAO, being cognizant of the quantity of workload that is currently ongoing in the planning committee, and the fact that we always had a second alternate date, I'm just wondering if there is provision for that in this new structure, and or like, I don't know whether you would need to separate the economic development and planning down the road if the workloads became overwhelming for that meeting structure. So.
Through you, Madam Mayor, let me start at that, because I think that goes to some of the comments we made around agenda management and trying to be, I think, anticipatory moving forward in terms of looking at an entire year's agenda and mapping out what needs to come. Of course, there's always going to be those instances where we need to make those adjustments, and I think we will be fluid when required to be fluid, but definitely we'll continue to monitor that and make sure that council has input into what that looks like.
Thank you very much. Councillor Foster, would you like to speak to the document as being an instrument of council?
Following my comments the other evening? Oh, yeah. No, I thank you, Madam Mayor. The one thing that I did mention at our committee meeting, and I think it's really important for the general community as well as council itself, is to remember that this is a living document, and so council needs to keep in mind that if it isn't working quite right, there's always an opportunity to change it. It is a bylaw, and so I think it's really important. we've made adjustments, I think, Wayne, probably about 4, maybe 5 times since both of us have been on council, and this is very good. Like, I'm really quite pleased what we're looking at, but once we really start getting it working, like, we have to have a little bit of agility as we're looking at this as well, so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I would also add that with the planned orientation for the new council that will include current council members that are returning, that there will be a comprehensive orientation, probably quite different than what has been experienced in the past, and also ongoing education and council support, which is absolutely essential to council's ability to interpret this document and to make it work for them and for the people they represent. And otherwise, it becomes an instrument of the staff. It ties everything up and makes it tidy. We don't necessarily need tidy all the time when you're dealing with democracy. So I think we're moving in a good direction. I want to thank the staff for their assistance to the subcommittee and in the development of this policy. It's a very good place to start a new term. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I do want to thank Julie and her team, Trish and others, and especially our council subcommittee, Councillor Foster, Councillor Timmers, Councillor Petrieva, and yourself. This was one of those very fluid processes, and staff, I mean, we heard loud and clear some of the comments at the last committee meeting. Staff are here to serve council and the community, and of course we'll be fluid moving forward.
Thank you very much. Well, now that we've broken our arms, patting each other on the back, I hope that when it comes down to the nitty-gritty that we jump in when we need to make sure that this document gets changed in any way that it needs to make it work as well as it ought to. We have no confirmation of compliance with Section 34 of the Planning Act this evening. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do need a motion. Sorry. I'm accustomed to having the clerk pass these things to me to change my behavior here. I have a motion by Councillor Rinjima and seconded by Councillor McPherson. Approve the Town of Lincoln Procedural Bylaw 2018 just a moment. Yes. The Procedural Bylaw 2018-91 to Clerk's Department Report CS 18-06 attached as Appendix A. Repeal Bylaw 2016-40 and all amendments. Approve the Town of Lincoln 2019 calendar of meetings attached as Appendix B to Clerk's Department Report CS 18-06. Any clarification required on the motion? Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. As I mentioned earlier, we have no compliance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, and we'll move on to bylaws. Councillor McMillan.
Yes, just before we get into the bylaws, when we arrived at the council chambers this evening, we received some written material from citizens in town concerning the Clean Yards bylaw, which is bylaw 2018-92. It's item M in the list of all the bylaws. Before we get into that, could we have some comments from staff as to receive this information from the citizens and what the staff response would be?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kirkopoulos, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thanks for the opportunity to speak to this particular topic and for the question, Councillor McMillan. Just to provide a little bit of update for council, there currently is a bylaw in effect, the Clean Yards bylaw. The change that is being proposed as part of this update is simply to add provisions for addressing graffiti in Section 7, whereas the bylaw did not have any enforcement tools. We did receive some suggestions from a member of the community And those are things that, in talking to Ms. Dale, when we bring back a more robust look at this particular bylaw, we can ensure are incorporated. Ms. Dale will be working with our manager of bylaw to ensure that he is in contact with Mr. Labatt and Mr. Cuff, who are the signatories of these comments, in order to get a better understanding of their suggestions and comments. And we will do that offline at a more appropriate juncture, and then ensure that we bring those back to council at the appropriate time.
Thank you very much. Any comments, councillors? Councillor Njima?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a question further to the comments that were submitted to us from the citizen earlier on today. And one of the questions that they had was regarding how this bylaw would address parking vehicles on front lawns. So I think through to the Director of Planning and Development, if you don't have the answer at this time, that's fine. I can take it later on. But my question is this an issue that's covered by zoning bylaw, or is it by the Clean Yards bylaw?
Ms. Dale?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the parking of vehicles on front lawns and things like that, there are provisions in the zoning bylaw for certain zoning categories that you can't use more than a certain percentage for parking of vehicles. So it's covered under zoning, not under the Clean Yards bylaw.
And thanks for clearing that up. Thank you.
Mr. CAO, I want to make note of the fact that a good number of the items that have been listed here by Mr. Labatt and Mr. Clough have been the subject of bylaw complaints. And so I think it is important that in the response to staff that we clarify what the outcome has been of the complaints in the past. And I think their questions are very important in terms of getting clarity, but it is a bit surprising that a number of these items, which have been complained about on multiple occasions, I understand, that that we don't seem to have any better information for them and what we're doing about it. Could you help us with that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think the comment or the suggestion I would make is, and I think it's no different than the explanation that Ms. Dale provided to Councillor Rajima now, is some don't all fall within the Clean Yards bylaw. So I think staff need to go back, look at the comments that are here, make sure they're allotted and assigned to the appropriate bylaw, and then determine where we're at in the process in terms of updating those bylaws. So definitely something that we will look at and engage Mr. Labatt and Mr. Clough in those conversations.
All right, well, I would just remind again, Mr. CAO, that if there were other bylaws that these fit into better than the Clean Yards bylaw, that they should have been informed some time ago about where they fit, and then so that we could have a discussion about what we were going to do about it. So that's for staff information. I think we could have done a little bit better job here. Councillor Pachariva.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Another one of the salient points that's found in this document, and I'd like to thank the two gentlemen for bringing this forward. Especially, it's cognizant now that we've brought bylaw in-house. We don't share it with the town of Grimsby anymore. Is that bylaw enforcement should not just be on a complaint basis. Bylaw officers should be able to note and advise a property owner of violation based on his or her observation. And I think that that's the crux of the whole bylaw discussion, is that they need to be enforced equitably. They need to be enforced throughout the town on the same level. And I think giving the staff the ability to read and react and view a situation and act accordingly, I think is something that, hopefully we can see in a report going forward on how this might change, especially on our gateways to our towns. On a complaint basis, sometimes it lengthens the time that the offender is able to react to the situation. So by arming the bylaw department with the ability to do that, I think would go a long way.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Thank you, Councillor McMillan. Madam Clerk, how will this document be incorporated into our reports from this evening?
This will be included in the correspondence package to council and as well as to the appropriate staff, and they will respond in an appropriate manner that way.
Very good. All right, thank you. Very good. Now, we have 20 bylaws this evening. I have a motion moved by Councillor McMillan, seconded by Councillor Pachariva, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw number 2018-80, to authorize a site plan agreement with Homes by DeSantis Beamsville, Inc. Bylaw number 2018-81, to amend the legal description of designating bylaw 98-62 Woodburn Cottage. Bylaw 2018-82, to authorize a community improvement plan grant with MSHE Beamsville, Inc. Bylaw 2018-83, to authorize a community improvement plan grant with Homes by DeSantis Beamsville, Inc. Bylaw 2018-84, to authorize a community improvement plan grant with 1541189 Ontario, Inc. Bylaw 2018-85, to stop up and close unopened road allowance Part Lot 9, Concession 1 and 2, Parts 1 and 2, Township of Louth. Bylaw 2018-86, conveyance of unopened road allowance Part Lot 9, Concessions 1 and 2, Parts 1 and 2, Township of Louth. Bylaw 2018-87, to stop up and close unopened road allowance between Concession 1 and 2, Lot 9 and 10 in the town of Lincoln. Bylaw 2018-88, conveyance of part of the unopened road allowance between Concession 1 and 2, Lot 9 and 10 in the town of Lincoln. Bylaw 2018-89, to stop up and close part of unopened road allowance between Lots 20 and 21, Concession 6, Township of Clinton. Bylaw 2018-90, conveyance of part of unopened road allowance between Lots 20 and 21, Concession 6, Township of Clinton. Bylaw 2018-91, Town of Lincoln Procedural Bylaw. Bylaws 2018-92, Clean Yards Bylaw Amendment. Bylaw 2018-93 for the imposition of development charges, Town of Lincoln. Bylaw 2018-94, to stop up and close part of the unopened road allowance between Concessions 4 and 5, Lot 12, Part 2 in the town of Lincoln. Bylaw 2018-95, conveyance of part of the unopened road allowance between Concessions 4 and 5, Lot 12, Part 2 in the town of Lincoln. Bylaw 2018-96, to stop up and close part of the unopened road allowance between Concessions 4 and 5, Lot 12, Part 3 and 4 in the town of Lincoln. Bylaw 2018-97, conveyance of part of the unopened road allowance between Concessions 4 and 5, Lot 12, Part 3 and 4 in the town of Lincoln. Bylaw 2018-98, to stop up and close part of the unopened road allowance between Concessions 4 and 5, Lot 12, Part 5 in the town of Lincoln. And Bylaw 2018-99, conveyance of part of the unopened road allowance between Concessions 4 and 5, Lot 12, Part 5 in the town of Lincoln. The pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried.
Madam Mayor, I do have a
Councillor?
question to that.
Which bylaw, Councillor?
A number of them. So I'd like, if you don't mind, through to the Director of Planning, a little bit of clarification, or just to review what it is that we, how it is we're handling some of these road allowance approvals. I know I had asked for clarification earlier on to the Director of Planning, and she explained it to me, but I'm not sure if all of Council recalls exactly why these are all coming to us. And I also had another comment, is that these bylaws, some of them it wasn't clear as to what property they were applying to. So I did ask for clarification of that earlier on and was sent out, and I've since shared it with council. But I do find it difficult sometimes to look at bylaws that we're approving and figure out exactly what property it applies to when it's within the council agenda. So.
All right, Councillor, this was a delegated responsibility, and it is our duty to make sure that we have this information ahead of time. I'm going to ask the CAO to provide some clarification for us. The motion, however, is essentially passed, although I have not said it, so I'm giving you lenience.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, you'll recall that council put in place a what I'm going to call a prohibition on further road allowances, and we were only going to deal with the ones that came in at the end of last year, leading into this year. It has taken us some time to negotiate those road allowances, and so with no further meetings coming, the reason you have them before you is because it has taken us the better part of a number of months to put all of those through the process, to enter into the negotiations, to schedule meetings, and so Ms. Dale can provide further detail specifically if it relates to the process the council approved. But there is, I don't like to use the word moratorium, but there has been a stop to further road allowances as a result of the transportation master plan. So the only ones that we're dealing with are the ones that were what I called at the time in the hopper and that had come forward. It has just taken us all of 8 or 9 months to negotiate closure and settlement of those items.
Okay, thank you. So that was explained to me in an email earlier on. I did ask the Director of Planning for clarification because I couldn't recall exactly what our process had been. But again, it was not clear to me on these bylaws which property the bylaw applied to. So that information was sent out to me, and I sent it out to council. So now I understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. All right, I've read the motion. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Thompson that bylaws number 2018-80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, and 2018-99 read a first time, be now read a second and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Councillors, your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Are there any councillor inquiries? There being none, are there any notices of motion? Are there any announcements? Councillor McPherson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just as we finish off our last evening of council for the term, just some comments. 4 years for me personally has flown by. It really has gone quickly. And a lot of work has been accomplished with this term of council. I'm very proud of the work that this term of council has completed. I mean, if you look at some of the major things, and I should also say, municipal governments sometimes get accused of not getting much done, but this term of council has been very productive in my mind. And just starting with our community vision and working on a vision for the town, looking at in excess of $10 million in road rehabilitation and maintenance that has gone on around town over the last 4 years, a significant number. And starting to look at some of the projects that have gone across the line, the Prudhoe Secondary Plan, a very, very public process that, for those that were involved, I think it went very well for the residents that were close by to the Prudhoe property. It was lengthy, but we got to a great result. The GO Station Secondary Plan, another public process that sets us up very nicely for the future. The Active Transportation Committee, I don't want to steal any of Councilor Bernays' thunder, but here's a committee that focuses on the pedestrians and making our roads safer. Economic development strategy, another, major accomplishment for this term of council that, we made the investment in an economic development officer who has led us through a significant process, working with the local businesses and residents to have an economic development strategy at the last Economic Development Committee meeting of the term, and now we have, a high-level strategy that we can build out over the next 5 years. U-Link transit system, I think it's one of the major accomplishments of our term of office, that we responded to a need in the community and came up with a plan and quickly put that plan into place. And we talked about the 2,000 people over the course of the last year, or I should say 8 months, that have used that system. A focus on speed reduction and control across the entire town. Councillor Foster was hard pushing, the speed reduction, and we've come up with a plan to handle that, and more work to be done, no question. But we've got some roads within the town that we've reduced speeds. And personally, the Jordan Improvement Project is certainly near and dear to my heart. That after a lengthy 15 or more years, we have now got a project that's going to have shovel in the ground within the next year. So, not to mention, or not to miss, a on-purpose effort in improving communications within our town. The updated website and the activity around social media and getting the word out has been, I think, outstanding. So just from a wrap-up standpoint, I think this term of council worked very hard and really got a lot of things across the finish line. So congratulations to the group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And of course, the ultimate word comes from the public, from the citizens, and we look forward to whatever decision they make. I have Councillor Pachariva and Councillor McMillan. No? You were doing this again. Councillor McMillan.
There's fruit flies over there.
Councillor McMillan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. You and council will recall that in mid-June, I made a statement to council that I would not be a candidate for re-election in the election that's coming up this month. And since this the very last council meeting of this term, which would be my very last council meeting, it's a real emotional time, and I couldn't let this milestone go by without some final comments, and I will be brief because it is very emotional for me. Several years ago, when I decided to take on this challenge of municipal government, I never in all my life thought that it would lead to many, many years around this horseshoe table. I've had the privilege of serving my town, and I have been humbled by the support that I've received from the residents of Ward 4 for 7 election campaigns. I also had the pleasure of serving with an outstanding group of citizens with whom I have shared the responsibility of governing over a 20-year period. This does, of course, include you, Madam Mayor, and this present group of councillors around the table. And I cannot overlook nor neglect to recognize the very talented and professional town staff that we have. They have always been available with sound advice, and they certainly made me look good many, many times. My final remarks must be a genuine and sincere thank you to all the good citizens of Lincoln. Thank you, thank you. It's been quite a journey. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I must say, Counselor, that in 99% of cases, no community would want someone as a counselor for 20 or 21 years. But when you get the results that you've been able to produce, and certainly in this last term when you insisted on not being a chair, but were willing to take on one of the biggest responsibilities that we had around heritage, I must say you had another opportunity to show us what you're made of. So thank you very much for your dedicated service. Now, I have Councillor Foster.
Thank you. I'm somewhat anticlimactic. So this will be my last council meeting in my current role within Ward 1. And my choice was to run for another position, but I have to echo Councillor McMillan. It is so difficult when one runs for council in the first place to understand what it is to really be a councillor here in town. The effect that we have on the community, the fact that we're there to represent the interests of the community on such important events and such important things. I think Wayne can agree, you know, we've had so many big events go on. You know, the selling of the fairgrounds, oh my goodness, I mean, that caused all sorts of grief. We spent years working through that particular issue within our town. Every once in a while you get things like flies that end up creating meetings here at Town Hall where everybody is to the rafters and you know, we're trying to solve what's right for the community. I've had the pleasure of working with 3 mayors. I know Wayne has as well. The first mayor was Ray Conkle, and one always said Ray wore the town on his sleeve. He was a very interesting guy to get involved with in politics in the first place. We had Bill for 11 years, who we could refer to as the great administrator. We a lot of changes within our municipality, a lot of very strong professional ethics, things around financial management, etc. And now we have you, Mayor Easton, who you have put us on a road in this particular council on humongous and great progress. So gotta say, I'm really going to miss this as well. If I'm fortunate enough to hang out as the regional councillor, great. If not, this has been a heck of a ride, and for all of you guys around council chamber who are running, all the best to you. You all deserve huge credit from the community because it has been a good term of council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Rinjima.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to announce the public information centers that are coming up for the Parks Master Plan, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. One is in Jordan, Tuesday, November 6th, from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Jordan Fire Hall. There's one in Vineland, Tuesday, November 6th, from 7 to 9 p.m. at 20 Valley Public School. There's one Thursday, November 15th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at Ebenezer Christian School. And there's one Saturday, November 10th, from 1 to 3 at the Fleming Center in Beamsville. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Is there anybody that should be on this list that isn't at the moment? No? All right, I have a couple of announcements. A general announcement about this being International Seniors and I suppose the politically correct expression is Elder Persons Day. And I would just like to point out that we have made some investment and minor upgrades to the Lincoln Center to make that a more comfortable place for our seniors. But I think the ones that will really stand out are the walking track at the Fleming Center, and also our recent decision to move the U-Link forward to the budget process so that we can look at an extension So although we may not be an age-friendly community at the moment, and this is something that's going to be for the next council to put some energy behind, we have been paying attention to 3 areas in particular that have benefited our seniors. And this is Ontario Agriculture Week from October 1st to the 7th, and I did post some commentary about this. We embraced the previous council's official plan mandate as a center of excellence for agriculture and took it beyond its embedment in the official plan to a very active process where we were engaged with businesses, new businesses, and existing businesses around cutting red tape and enabling processes, making information available to businesses and making it easier for them to expand their business and to make greater investments in the town. So these are very important. Ag Week is really a time when we would look around our community and look at food production, horticulture, flowers, vegetables. We still have some dairy, we still have poultry, we still have some pork producers. So it is not mixed farming as it was, but still a very, very well-rounded offering, including the many wineries that we have, over 50 in Lincoln alone. So I certainly encourage everyone to thank their farmers the next time they go to the markets, because there will be a few more days left to do that, and to thank them for safe food and for setting the example around safe food, not only for Ontario but for Canada as a whole. I would also like to announce that on September 25th there were announcements made by Viland Research in regard to their board. And they appointed Dr. Warren Jestin as chair of the board. Dr. Jestin joined the board in 2013. He was appointed vice chair in 2016, and he succeeds the Honorable Lal Van Cleef, who served as board chair for the last 3 years and was certainly a board chair who was very involved in this community and certainly a good advocate for the town. Dr. Jestin has a background in finance. He retired from the Scotiabank after 3 decades as the chief economist. Also, incoming directors include Carolyn Hurst, who is the president of Westcott Vineyards in Lincoln, and Fred Courneef, the president of Courneef Produce, as well as Sue-Ann Staff, the owner winemaker of Sue-Ann Staff Estate Winery. So we certainly congratulate all of these members. We certainly value the relationship we have with VRIC, and on behalf of council, I have sent letters to each of these individuals on their appointment. I have a motion. Councillor Thompson.
My apologies, Madam Mayor. I would be remiss if I didn't mention yesterday was Orange Shirt Day, and the fact that that all children matter, from the roots of the Indigenous school system and residential school system. So I think it's important that we remember that.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thanks for the opportunity. On behalf of the senior staff, and almost all of us are in attendance this evening, I too wanted to take a moment to acknowledge both Councillors Foster and McMillan. Councillor Foster may very likely be back with us, and so he will be a regular visible individual around this particular horseshoe with a lot of us. But I do want to highlight and thank him for his passion for good governance, the dialogue, the challenge, for us always to be better and to do better. And I think collectively it's made us a better management team in terms of what we've always brought in front of this council. So I want to thank him, and to Councillor McMillan for his willingness to work with staff to often lend to our expertise, as I think he highlighted, to inform council's decision-making, to his professionalism and respect for staff. I know a lot of staff very much appreciated that, Councillor. Not just the staff that are new to the organization, but staff that have been here for a very long time. So your leadership over the years and mentorship to new councillors, along with Councillor Foster, have been things that I think people will remember. And both of you, for your passion and love for Lincoln. You've been great ambassadors, and on behalf of senior management team, best of luck.
Thank you very much. I have a motion moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Foster, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaw, number 2018-100, to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by council resolution. Your pleasure on the motion. Motion is carried. A motion moved by Councillor Brunet and seconded by Councillor Timmers, that bylaw number 2018-100, read a first time, be now read a second and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. If that isn't an indication of how much work has been going on, I don't know what is. And now I would say that there being no further business, and that the business that has been circulated and posted has been completely dealt with by this council. And using the gavel that my father made me, I call this last meeting adjourned.